Hey, Rod.
Hey, Chris. Do you have a question for me?
In fact, I do.
What's that question?
What do you know about hospice services?
I know a little bit about hospice. We used it when Jeff was sick.
Yep, I used it when Janice was sick, and I think it's something everybody needs to know about. So, lucky enough, we're going to talk to somebody today about that.
Hey, this is Rod.
And this is Chris.
We are Unqualified
and Unsupervised,
the show where two guys try to figure out life after loss with no experts, no scripts, just experience.
We're going to have the unfiltered conversations about hard topics that no one wants to talk about, but everyone should. Coming from a couple of guys who were forced to join a club we didn't want to join.
Hey, Chris.
Yeah, Rod.
This is going to be a really interesting
I
episode.
think so.
We're going to actually talk to somebody who's in the trenches. We're really going to dig in on this one.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
We're going to dig into the trenches. I get your punny.
Yep. But no, it's going to be interesting to talk to somebody who actually deals with people dying daily and what that's involved, and dealing with the families and dealing with the people themselves, and someone who not only deals with that, but also has had her own personal experiences with loss. So
So tonight we have Conrae Huinker, who's the clinical nurse manager at Mercy One Hospice House of North Iowa. And so Conrae, welcome and hello. Thanks for being here.
Well, hello. Thank you for having me. I think it is going to be a good topic to talk about. And thanks for having me.
Absolutely. Yeah. No, I'm excited because, 7 years ago, I was sitting right there in that hospice house with my wife and family. And I would not have gotten through that moment of that part of the journey without hospice and the months leading up to it.
Right.
So, and I'm not sure people know really what hospice services are. When to get them and when to contact hospice, and what it really entails. So let's start there. And let's start with a little bit about your background. So you're a nurse, have been for 30 years. And how did you get into hospice nursing?
I think hospice nursing always kind of interested me. I always felt when I worked at the hospital or I worked in long-term care, I just felt like being with somebody at the end of their life just was a blessing, and being able to be there for them and the families. And so when that position opened up here at the hospice house, I applied for that, and I started working in the inpatient unit when it was here. And then I started doing home care. So I was taking care of patients in their home, in the nursing homes, wherever they called home, I went. And I just always felt like that was a calling for me. Like
it was
really,
a fit. It was a fit.
Yeah.
it was. And so many people have asked me, how can you do that? How it's so sad. And it really, it's just powerful, I would say, to be with people as they journey through the end of their life, those last days, months,
Sure.
and then to be there with them at the end.
Because it isn't just the person that's dying; it's the family that you're
absolutely.
dealing with. I mean, it's a whole circus of people that you have to deal with. For information, I lost my partner Jeff 3 years ago, a little over 3 years ago, and that was his desire to die there, and he wasn't there very long. Maybe. I don't know. He just wasn't there. We took him on. He was there at noon on Thursday, and he died at 6:00 on Friday.
Okay.
So for whatever that time frame is,
18-ish hours.
Right. But there's
36 hours.
There's a lot of interesting things about being a hospice nurse, because you can gauge where people are in their process of dying.
You can, and even with families, like you mentioned, the family. There's so many different ways people prepare for that, and family members, some really don't want hospice. I don't want my mom on hospice, but yet mom's ready to be on hospice. Mom's tired,
Yes.
she's
Yes.
had this journey, she's tired. But the family, it can take some people longer to get to that point, because we think we want to do everything we can, right? Like we want, and then sometimes it's just time.
Right, right.
They said
Mhm.
people are tired, so it's helping that family, those family members through that process also, because sometimes the patient is just more ready than the family is,
Oh,
for sure.
Right,
absolutely.
right.
Janice was,
Well,
you know.
I would like to back up just a little bit because I know there's a little bit more
Sure.
before you get to hospice. Because when Jeff was sick, we entered him into palliative care, and
Hmm.
then we said, "Well, how are we going to know if he's ready for hospice?" Like he makes that transition, and they said, "We'll tell you," and they
Mm.
did. But I think going through the whole process of he was sick, then he did the palliative care, and then he worked into hospice. I think it also gave him time to deal with his like what's happening to me, what's happening to my body,
Hmm.
my mortality, and I think that helped him a lot. And knowing that he was where he wanted to be when he died, that was incredibly important.
Yes.
Yeah, but I
Yep.
just wondered, what would you speak to about palliative care, the
So
lead up
palliative,
to yeah,
yeah, palliative care and hospice care actually can work very close together, and it's usually the normal transition to go from palliative care into hospice care, because you can see just in people with their decline, um, if they're no longer seeking treatment, if their pain becomes unmanageable. Palliative care does a lot of things to help manage pain, but they can definitely tell when people are starting to make even more changes, and that's where hospice
right there.
becomes a more appropriate plan for them.
There are physical changes and emotional changes
Hmm.
happening. Is that
Mhm.
right? So
Yes.
what's the distinction between palliative care and hospice care? What's the difference?
So palliative care is more, we're going to try to, I don't know if sustain life, but we're going to do more things. Where once you're at hospice care, you're more like, I really don't want anything else done. Um, and you're just getting closer to that end of life. Palliative care is more towards the top of, I want to say, like the beginning possibly.
Hmm.
But then as things change, then they just kind of, it goes more into, okay, now I'm at the hospice level of care, if that makes sense, if I
Yeah.
worded that right.
Right?
Yeah. So,
Um,
so would you say palliative care is more of treatment,
yes,
whereas
yeah,
hospice is more of comfort?
yes. Yeah, and palliative care, I mean, they
Mhm.
focus a lot on like pain management. So a lot of people will be in palliative care and maybe they don't even transition into hospice care. So they're in palliative care having their pain managed, for quite some time. Um,
Okay.
but, hospice care is definitely when, you have the patient from the cancer center who just says, I don't want any more treatment. Or you have the dialysis patient who says, I don't want to have dialysis anymore. I'm just ready to be
Sure.
comfortable. Um,
Sure. That was our situation. Once chemo was no longer keeping the metastatic cancer in her lungs from growing, she was
mhm.
done. She's like, I'm not taking any more treatments. I can't do this anymore. And especially if it's not going to work. I
Right.
want to have quality of life and for however long that is. So she stopped um, treatments in July, and that's when we got into hospice care. Then just with home care, and then she passed in September.
Well, and with
So
cancer patients too, I know cancer doctors. I mean, again, sometimes with doctors, even like giving that hospice referral, because sometimes it's hard for doctors to realize also, well, there's nothing more I can do. Like they keep sometimes wanting to do more and more treatments because it's hard, to,
sure, you don't want to
I
give
don't
up
want
hope.
to, I don't want to see, right, right. And so we are getting now more referrals from the cancer center docs of recent, and an earlier referral, I feel like is always better than a late referral, because when we come on earlier, there's just so many services and support that we can provide. And, I really feel like hospice is just about quality of life and not quantity of life. I
Right.
know when
Oh yeah,
I first said that to my husband, I said, I think we're just at, I think it's time to call hospice. And obviously calling the hospice that I worked for. And he said, do you think that I said, Jim, it's really, it's just about quality of life now. and just having some more support here for you
Right.
and for the family. I think it was kind of devastated when I said that to him. I don't think I'll ever forget that day, but I knew in my heart that it was time for both of us to have the support of hospice. And I
Right.
tell you that I think I brought hospice in on, I think, July of 2020, and he passed in October of 2020. And I relied on them so much.
So
And
the last 3 months,
mhm,
because that's
Mhm.
timeline sounds familiar with Jeff too.
Almost the exact same timeline with
Yeah.
Janice, only 2 years earlier,
Yeah. Yeah.
July to September. But
wow, yeah.
yeah, but I just remember because Janice was the one who did the research and called for the services.
Mhm,
And so I just
mhm,
remember when she told me, that's when I lost hope, and I think
yeah,
that's why people avoid it. They don't
they
want
do.
to call. It's like that's finally admitting that hope is
Mhm.
gone. And
Right.
Oh,
so they just don't want to let go of that. And I don't blame them.
no. I agree, and that's why we do a lot of what we call information onlys, and we just go out and talk with families because true, they don't want to give up hope. We don't, you know, so we do a lot of education that it's not giving up hope. It's just providing them with the best. I don't want to say the best time, but the most quality time that they can have now
Sure.
moving
Right.
forward.
Oh yeah.
Right.
I I can't imagine what the last days would have been like if she'd have tried to keep doing treatment, keep doing chemo that was making her sick and making her vomit all the time, making her weak so she couldn't do anything and be like that all the way to the end and how long that might have taken.
Right.
That could have taken a year for all we know. And that would have been a horrible year.
Yeah. No, I agree. And I think, even, you know, with some of the medications we use, I feel like we use morphine,
Right.
some, and that anytime you say the word morphine to some families, people, that scares them. And morphine
Sure.
just has gotten this really negative attachment to it. But it is a medication that it does help people, and it does,
Mhm.
help with breathing, with pain, and that can be a challenge with families because we can see their person is struggling, and we're like, well, can we just try a little,
It
just a
takes the
small
edge
dose?
off. It's
Yeah.
anxiety because I
Mhm.
remember, doing that. And one of the reasons we chose hospice was because we knew the drugs were going to be beneficial for Jeff. And people often say that, well, he's not in any pain. Well, he really wasn't in pain. I mean, kind of the entire time because of pain management. And
Mhm.
and he and Jeff was in full control of everything that he did. I mean, when I talked with him, even though I had the legal everything, I always asked him, "What do you want to do?" And I
Hmm.
remember the decision to take him to hospice. His daughter was there that day. He's in the nursing home. We had that discussion, and she was very upset. She goes, "I don't know what Daddy wants. I don't know." Well, I did know what Daddy wants because
Right.
we had talked about it. And
Hmm.
I give Jeff a lot of kudos. He was very brave about his mortality, and we talked about puppies and kitties. We didn't talk about very serious things.
Hmm.
And I think that was important. But I also knew that the care that he was going to get in the hospice house he wasn't going to be anxious. He was going to be able to breathe. We spent the night with him, and uh, it was just a magical time.
Right.
If you can, if you
Because he died of COPD. That's why the
COPD, yes,
the
and
breathing issue was such
right.
Yes.
a thing.
Right.
Yeah.
But he didn't,
Yeah.
he wasn't like people imagine they're going to be gasping for air and they're going to be struggling. No, Jeff didn't have any of that. He was totally relaxed. He had his family around him. We talked as though he was part of the conversation. We didn't leave
Mhm.
him out of the conversation. And I think
Hmm.
those are important. We may want to talk about that, the aspect of when a person is actively dying, because they said it, actively dying. Their body is transitioning. These things are going on. Their things are changing. Their temperature is changing. He had a fever that they had to break, and they did, because if they said if we don't break this, he'll have seizures, and we don't want that. I mean, they were just wonderful about his care, but people don't understand there is a process to dying, and how does that work?
There definitely is, right? I've
Mhm.
seen so many patients, as they're transitioning, actively dying, and everybody's journey is a little different, but,
Well,
it
let's define transition, because I could almost pinpoint when I felt that Jeff was no longer Jeff.
mhm,
You know, like somewhere in the night when I woke up the next morning, even though I was with him, I held his hand all night long. There was just something about him the next day. I thought Jeff is not really here.
mhm,
The Jeff I know, like I don't know what it was. I couldn't describe it, but I just
mm,
knew, his body, he was going through that process.
yeah.
So what does that really mean?
To me, it means that they are making their way. And I could tell with Jim also.
Right?
I'm like, some things he's distant. He wasn't. I could just tell, and he literally he could was like he was seeing people, like he was seeing his dad, and he was seeing, and I've seen that with
We've
other
heard
people.
that.
Mhm.
I've seen,
They reach out.
mhm. Yeah, oh yeah, they'll grasp.
Yes.
I've had patients here in the unit who will be talking to their mom. So they're in that in between, right? Like they're here, but they're already journeying on to the next world. The next they just and it's a and how long that lasts can vary. I've seen people transition quickly. I've seen people that go slow, and I think there's many reasons for that sometimes. But yeah, like you shared, I mean, you can just kind of tell they're already, I don't want to say drifting away, but they're making their way. You can tell it.
They're not part of this world
Well,
so much
well, and their
anymore.
body's shutting
Right,
down.
Right.
right. They're
Yep.
not part of this world. That's a great way to say that. Yeah, they're in between, and they're just making their way. And but I do believe that they can hear everything.
Yes.
That I think is so important for people to know that they can still hear you. I've read studies on this. I mean,
Mhm.
I just that's just believe that's true. And so, what I would encourage families, please keep talking. They can hear you.
Well, yeah,
Um,
that happened to me. I had a friend describing the family's all there. The dad they thought was dying. Well, anyway, they were all whispering. They were, and then he recovered, and he said, he was trying to hear them, and he said I was burning up a lot of energy just trying to hear. So when he fell back again into that state, they all made sure that they talked where he was part of the conversation, and that's why we did it with my dad. We did it with
Sure.
Jeff. We just made sure he was part of the conversation. We acted like he was active. We could tell he was actively listening,
mhm.
and I think it was that calmed him as well.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I agree. And keep it light sometimes I would, tell families you can sing a song, or if there's something that, what would they want, and what would,
Tell
and
jokes.
Yeah.
tell
W-
jokes. And
Well,
I would have family members who were like, I can't leave. I mean, we had so many patients here who they may wait for you to go to pass. Seen that so many times. Like you've been
mhm.
at the bedside for days, and why isn't mom or going? Or I said, maybe you should just step out for supper. Oh, I can't do that. And I'm like, they
Right.
know how to
Mm,
feel about them. They
right.
know that. They know you love them. You have shared that. You've been here. Maybe they won't pass with you here. And I have had that happen so many times. And I think some people I have to be there. What if I'm not there? But
Right. Right.
maybe you're not meant to be there.
Right.
Maybe you know,
Well, and I
yeah.
think having, been in EMS and fire for so long, I've seen a lot of people die. I've seen a lot of people dead. And I'm not sure
Mhm.
everybody actually needs to see their loved one actually pass. Now, when Janice went, I was the only one in the room.
Yeah.
It was like the one moment that everybody else had gone out of the room.
Mhm.
Right.
And that's when she took her last breath.
Well,
So,
I want to add to this because it's really
okay.
interesting because in the book Tuesdays with Maury, it's so
Mhm.
interesting, and I'm going to give it away. Uh, at the end, the family's there. All of a sudden, they just happened to step out in the kitchen. It was just maybe a matter of minutes, and when they went back in, he was gone.
Mhm.
Mhm.
With you hear that all the time. That well, we went back to change clothes, and on the way home, the hospice house called and said, "Hey, your mother's passed or your father's passed." Now
Mhm.
with Jeff, I asked him, I said, do you want me to be there when you pass away, when you die? And he said, yes. And I held true to that promise. But it was really interesting because we were all sitting around him, and actually one of his daughters said, well, he might just be waiting for us. So we literally all left, and it was, we all scattered to different things, but I filtered back, and I think that was really wonderful. They gave me alone time with Jeff, so I wanted to fulfill that. But why do you think it is that is from the person that's dying? Do you think it's psychological or something, like they don't want to have their family there when they die? Maybe that's the way they want it to be.
I think it's how they want it to be. I think, I know the morning Jim passed, I had just left the bedroom. I had sent Nicholas back there to just kind of be with him because I had to come do something. And Nicholas came out like just 2 minutes, not even 2 minutes. He goes, Dad wants you. And I said, oh, okay. Well, so I go back there and Jim's talking to me. And then all of a sudden he passes.
Wow.
And I do believe, I mean, it was just,
Wow.
in all my years of hospice, I've never had where, I mean, he said, I'm confused. And I said, what are you confused about? Your brother's on his way. And then he just looked at me and said, am I dying? And I said, I don't. And I said, oh my gosh, he just passed. And I think he really chose to not pass with Nicholas there.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Why he told Nicholas to come get me. So I do think people, and I just think some people do want, I don't know if they feel like that would be too hard for their family to pass in front of them. I don't know, but I just have seen that just so much where they will wait until, or maybe there's just
Right.
one person left there, or maybe, I don't know. It is, yeah.
It's
Well, I
interesting.
just remember having this moment with Jeff, and I reminded him, I said, I am here as promised. I'm holding to the, you wanted me here, and I'm here, just so you know. And he didn't react or anything, but I just needed to reassure him. I'm keeping to my promise. I am here. And I'm going to kind of go back to something you touched on about sending the family home, because that morning I needed to take a shower. I'd been there, and I went out to the desk, and I said, do I have time? Can I run home? And they said, yes, you've got time. And I did. I went home, did some things, took a shower, freshened up, and I came back, and that, because it must have been around lunchtime or whatever, because someone went out and got food. And it was so interesting that it was always intrigued me how they knew to say yes to me. Like, what was going on? Like, what were they seeing that said, yes, you have time, because this is at noon and he died 6 hours later.
So we can tell a lot by their breathing.
Oh, okay.
As people start to change, then their breathing can become more shallow. It can become more gurgly sounding. It just has a different rhythm and sound to it. And then what is their heart rate? How many breaths are they taking a minute? What's their blood pressure? Are they starting to model, which is when, the feet up to the knees will turn purple?
Yes.
Have you seen any of that?
Fingertips.
Fingertips, lips sometimes. So there are those certain things, and
They're
they
giveaways.
probably felt, they were probably, they could probably tell, he was breathing was still, but we could be wrong in that too. I'm not gonna lie.
Thank goodness. Oops. Sorry about that. But no,
so was there a specific time that you were wrong about that, or?
Oh, we've been wrong, or we've called all the family back because we think, oh my goodness, we're close, and it'll be 3 more days. So it can go
either way.
It can go either way, or I'm so sorry. They I really thought you could get back. I really thought that, and most people are okay with that. But it's
Sure.
and sometimes we never know. I mean, I will say that sometimes we have signs, we know certain things, but people can still surprise us at the end of their life.
But that's the other thing with people. They said, do you, when Jeff got sick, well, do you know, did the doctors say anything? No. This was the common answer. We don't know. And that held true. We don't know. It's the doctor saying, yes, you've got 6 months to live, or you've got 3 months. I was so glad we don't know. and that worked with Jeff, because why lock yourself in? Why box yourself into a particular time? I mean, because they can surprise you. Everybody passes and dies on their own time.
100%. That's
Yeah.
so true.
But I'll
And
tell you,
I
you guys
had,
were spot on with Janice.
How so?
Spot on. When that was about 10:30 in the morning, she started getting very restless. Legs were kicking back and forth, and she was rolling around, but she wouldn't talk to me. And she had a very glaze-eyed look in her face. And she was doing that too. She was reaching out. She was doing all of those kinds of things. And I'm like, oh God, what's going on? So I called our hospice nurse, and she said, well, that's restlessness. Time to bring her in. And so we did. And then the assessment when we first got her in, and the nurse looked at me and said, it will be within 24 hours.
Wow.
And it was.
Right. Because of those signals.
Whatever. Yeah. The signs and symptoms that she was seeing.
Wow.
Well, and even running the temp, like I mentioned, running a temperature, that's an indication.
Yep. He had the temperature after. And I remember they put ice bags under his arms, and I don't know, the legs under, but they broke the fever, and he died within like maybe an hour and a half of that.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. I mean, the fever broke, which was good. But is that the body burning up energy?
Or just working its butt off trying to stay alive?
Yeah, I think that, and it's just everything's kind of shutting down,
right?
And the body temp goes up. That's just very common, and some people will get high temperatures, not like just 100.1. They'll go up to 100 and 200 and 3.
Wow.
We would ice pack people, yeah, and I think it's just the body shutting down in a sense, and just trying to, I don't know, keep going, but yet shutting down, if that makes sense. But yeah.
But it's a whole process that people don't understand. They're not familiar. And I think it scares people, and they need to know it's not scary. The person that is dying, they're not necessarily scared, because a lot of times they're unconscious. I mean, their body's just going through things.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think it comes to a point where it's more scary for the family and the caregivers than it is for the patient, especially if the patient is comfortable. It's more scary, I think, for people to watch.
Yes.
I think it can be uncomfortable, especially as breathing will change, and they'll start what we call Cheyne-Stokes respirations, and those are usually at the end, or agonal breathing, they'll call it. And it's just a really, it's hard to hear. And then it's hard for people to understand, no, they're not suffering. Even though they're breathing like this, it sounds terrible, I know, but they're not suffering.
Right.
So it can be incredibly hard for people to watch those last, hours or whatever, if, the breathing is changing, or they're extremely restless. Thank goodness there's medication to help with that, but I have seen extreme restlessness in people also, which can be hard to watch.
Wow. I'm going to go back because, we're talking about the reaching out, and they're talking to people. And I'm going to tell this story. A year before Jeff died, I distinctly remember it was January. And because he was sleeping in the living room in a recliner, because that helped with his breathing. And I came out one morning and I said, "How you doing?" He goes, "I had the weirdest dream." And I said, "What was it?" He said, "I was with my mom." I said, "What do you mean? What were you doing?" "We were just sitting across the table from each other." I said, "What'd you talk about?" He's nothing. He was, I was just with her. All right. So the next morning, walk out. "How you doing?" I had another one of those weird dreams. And I was like, "What is that?" He goes, "I was with my dad." I said, "What do you mean you were with your dad?" "Yeah, we were just sitting across the table. We were having a beer." "What'd you talk about?" "We were just having a beer." So I recognized that for what that was. He was being visited. I believe he was being visited by his parents. And then so he died in February, but in the following January, like just weeks before he died, I went out to see him because he was at the facility. And I said, "How you doing?" He said, "I had one of those weird dreams again." I said, "What do you mean?" He said, "I was with my mom." So I believe that he was visited by his parents, and they were preparing him. And I do believe that when he died, they were on the other side greeting him. I that gave me great comfort to know.
Okay.
You know,
Yeah. I don't know.
So I don't know. I don't know if you want to do it. I don't know if you how you want to respond to that or not. But those are the things that happened because I called one of our guests was an evidential medium, and I talked to Kim right away, and she says, Rod, he's being visited. They're preparing him. So anyway, would you like to take that on?
Yeah, I mean, I've heard other stories similar to that, and I think that we may have those dreams and kind of dismiss them or not think much about them, but I do think that sometimes those things happen, kind of preparing for what's to come. I've had other people share similar things like that. Um, yeah, it's hard to explain that, but I do believe that there's people waiting on the other side. And I've had people who, they'll tell me they see people
Right. Right.
as they're going. So yeah, I do believe that happens. Can I explain it all? No, but I do believe it
Right.
happens.
Right. But I think
Yeah.
it gave him comfort.
So,
Yes.
and so, Janice would have those dreams every once in a while. And being the analytical, scientific person she is, she would just say, well, that's just my brain protecting itself.
Oh.
It's trying to keep me from having the anxiety that I'm dying and giving me something to hang on to. It's a protection mechanism that I don't consciously control.
Yeah, that's a great way of
and I don't know. Who knows which way is right? I mean,
Right.
but that's how she saw it. But either way, it made her feel better.
Right. Right.
And that's what's important. So
No, that makes sense also. That makes sense too. Yeah, I mean, some of the things you can't explain it. I mean, I don't know. Death and dying, there's just more to it, I think, than people realize and what that actually is like for people. And yeah, it's a journey they take.
Right.
It's a journey. It's a journey.
Well, okay. I'm gonna diverge here a little bit because because you have to deal with the families, and I got a call about 6-7 years ago, and it was from the funeral home, and they said, "Hey, the family's called and wanted to know if you'll do." I'll say Doris's hair. I said, "What happened to Doris?" Nothing. I said, "Where's Doris?" Well, Doris is in hospice. I said, "So if I want to see Doris, I've got to go to hospice." And she said, "Yes." So I quick go over there. And I walk in, and Doris is in a sleep-like state, but her two daughters are there. And I sat there with them for about an hour, and we told stories and everything. Well, then I think Doris was there about 2 weeks. And at one time, I was told that the family was all gathered, and they were like arguing. They actually had to kick the family out. They said 2 at a time, take this outside, because they were arguing estate stuff or whatever. But they said, your mother is trying to actively die, and she cannot do this with you all doing this in the room. They kicked the family out.
Wow.
So I just wonder, like, what kind of stories can you tell us about dealing with families?
Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness.
Where do I start?
Yeah, oh boy.
I mean, I've had, we've had a lot. We've had to call security. I mean,
Yes.
that had to happen.
We've had to do that at the funeral home.
Yes.
Yes.
Which is called the cops.
Yeah.
Not security.
Yeah.
Yeah. We've had to not let certain family members in. We've had to ask people to leave. I mean, when somebody's dying, it can just raise so many emotions in a family dynamic. And if that family dynamic is already struggling, this is going to probably make it worse in some ways.
Sure.
And so we've had to deal with a lot of difficult families. And I've had people, their journey, or as they transition, is going to be a lot more uncomfortable because they know that things aren't settled. So people are fighting in the room, or that's going on. That only makes their journey harder. And I've had people hold on for longer because they won't go until something is resolved. And we've had to have those talks with families also. Like, some of this needs to be resolved. They're not passing because there's no resolve to this situation. And sometimes there can't be. But yeah, we've dealt with a lot of families who angry.
Oh yeah.
I mean, angry.
At each other or at what's happening?
I think both.
Okay.
Yeah.
And it's really hard to not let a family member come back, right? That's tough.
Right.
Like, they've been very disruptive. They've been disrespectful. They've been yelling. you don't want them to come back. Family don't let him back in. That's hard too, to leave that family member
Right.
not coming back in those
Right.
last hours also. But
Well,
So do you find
yeah.
that like when that's happening, that there are physiological changes in the patient, blood pressure, pulse, breathing,
Oh yeah. Oh
color,
yes.
skin
Yep.
color, any that kind of thing?
Yep. Yep.
And
Their pulse will rise, and I mean, you can just tell sometimes by their face that they can tell what's going on in that room. Um, but it's
sure.
yeah, it's sad. It's unfortunate that when those situations arise. But it happens, and it happens in the homes also. Um,
Oh, I bet in the homes it does,
Oh,
because then
yeah.
it's their home.
mm-hmm.
Or it's grandma's
So
home
Yeah,
or
where they're
whatever. Yeah.
where they're
Yeah.
more comfortable and they're
Yeah.
the only
Yeah.
ones there, I suppose.
yep, and already maybe fighting about what's going to be left when this person's gone, or there's all kinds of things.
I get the couch. Yeah,
Yeah.
that kind of
Yeah,
stuff.
Yeah.
I want the dish.
yeah.
Something with this
Wow.
conversation has kind of risen in my thought. There's this people have said, well, we were talking to mom and we told her to go. It's okay to go. We're da 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 da. And I've kind of told my son I don't want his last words to me like, Dad, it's okay to go.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, I mean,
That's not your decision. It's
well,
mine.
well, excuse me, but it's like, fuck you.
Yeah.
I'm going to go when I'm going to go. It's not up
Yeah.
to you, right?
Uh-huh.
Right.
But
Yeah.
but in the discovery of that, I think what I need to know is that everything's okay. I need him to say, Dad, everything's in order, everything's in place. I'm
Right.
going to do this without crying.
No, you're not.
I'm going to be okay. I've got
Yeah.
these people looking after me, and everything's going to be okay. I want to hear that. I want to hear that
Right.
that he's going to be okay. I don't want to hear that, oh, Dad, it's okay to go. No, I want to know that he's okay.
Right.
That he's got support, those things.
And to that end, Janice, that's the only thing that mattered to Janice, is that we were going to be okay, to the point where she actually had made a book where she put all of her passwords into it,
All right.
where she put all of her account numbers into it. So I could even get into her Apple ID, and I could get into her Facebook, and I could get
Nice.
into her email and get that all shut down, or whatever I had to do with it. Power of attorney, all of that stuff. Had the will in order.
Right.
She had all of that in order, because then she knew everything would be okay.
Right.
In fact, to the point where 3 months after she passed, I got an email from Google because the account hadn't been touched for 3 months. And it said, is this account still active? And when I clicked on it, she had written an email for me to see 3 months after she passed.
Wow.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's-
And it popped up.
Yep. See, it's
Yeah.
it's stuff like
So-
that. Yeah.
So, but yeah, I mean, to that end, I would agree that the most important thing the family members can do is we're okay.
Yeah,
Right.
I think so too, and I agree with that. Oh, I mean, I don't know that I need to give somebody permission to go, right?
No.
I think it's more about, I love you, thank you, I'm going to be okay. Thank you for the years we had. I'm going to be okay, because that's what they worry about. They worry about, are you going to be okay?
Right.
I think one of the last things Jim said to my mom was like, just take care of her. Like,
Right.
make sure she gets oil changed in the car. Make sure she, does all the things.
Right.
Takes the garbage out on Tuesday. I think that is just, so I'm glad you mentioned that, because I think that they just want to know people are going to be okay. And more so than it's okay if you go. I mean, a
Right.
lot of people do say that, but no, I totally
Mm.
agree with that.
Well, and I would say that people say that because it makes them feel better. Not because they think it's really they think it's making the patient feel better, but really they're saying that for themselves. It's just like after she passed and people are always like, what can I do for you? That's something people say to make them feel better because they don't know what else to say.
Exactly.
So the
Right.
thing to say is, we're okay.
Right.
And we're going to be okay.
Well, as Jeff was, in his last minutes, we were all there, and as his daughters, his ex-wife, my sister, my son, and me, and we were all there. And all of a sudden, his ex-wife goes, "It's okay, Jeff, you can go." Yeah, I mean, she started talking, and it's kind of like, shut up.
Everybody's like,
I almost shushed her.
Yeah.
Now's the time. Because
Yeah.
I'd had that talk with him. I told him I was going to be okay.
Right.
He knew it. And it's like, and you're the only one in the room talking. And when you say that, Chris, that made me think of it, because it's like she was doing that to make herself feel
Right.
good. It wasn't about Jeff at all.
Right. I'm now ready to let you go.
Well, I don't know
But you're
about
not.
that, but yeah,
you're not.
yeah,
But
yeah.
you're trying to convince yourself of that.
But that's always stayed with me. It's like, shut up. He knows. We've all had the conversation with him.
Geez, maybe you could have incited something and they could have had security throw her out.
Geez, well, he died like maybe 5 minutes later, 10 minutes later. But it's just like, shut up.
Yeah.
I mean, this is the time to be quiet. So.
Right.
And I don't know if I've ever really thought about it that way, that it is more for that person saying it, but that there's truth to that.
That makes sense. Yeah.
It does make sense.
Yeah. It's taken me a while to figure that out, but I kind of finally did. It's based on who said it to me and when they said it. And I'm like, oh, okay.
Yeah.
I get it now.
Well,
that's okay.
I don't know, Conrae, if you've heard our show about it's okay not to be okay and don't touch me.
No.
You have to listen to that one, because Chris's mantra this whole time has been, it's okay to not be okay, because of his journey. So mine was, don't touch me, because shortly after Jeff passed, I went into that back hallway where the restrooms were, and there was a bench back there. And I just started sobbing. I really let go, because I didn't want to do that in front of the family. And I remember, and it might have even been you, I don't know. But anyway, someone put their hand on my shoulder. And I said, don't touch me. And I looked up, and it's the nurse. And I said, I just immediately fell. I said, I'm so sorry. She goes, your family just want to make sure you're okay. And if this is the worst thing that happens to me today, I'm okay with that. I mean, I just lost it. I'm not one of those people. Not everybody needs to be touched and hugged in this moment. I needed to be away from people. But, and everybody reacts to the death differently. I remember looking down the hall to my left, and I saw my son at the other end. And the look on his face, like he just turned around and went the other way.
Like, oh boy, here we go.
I'm not messing with Dad, this moment. But anyway, I'm eternally sorry that I reacted to the nurse that way. She was just being kind, and if she hears this, tell her I'm so thankful for her
she
care.
Totally understood, right?
Yes,
She
and
totally
she was. I mean,
understood
as we
that.
were leaving that night, I said, "I'm so sorry," and she's kind of like, "It's okay, it's okay," But people do react at that end. The emotions are all over the place.
Yeah, absolutely.
They are, and they just are, and you can't anticipate sometimes how you will react. I mean, I think I had a year to know it was. I mean, we knew it was inevitable that it was, but you just don't know really how you'll react when it actually happens. And I don't think you're prepared. I don't know. I don't.
No.
You think
so.
you can tell yourself you're prepared, but you're not really prepared.
No, you're not.
Yeah.
No, you're not.
But they were really they were just so wonderful about making sure that we had food. And like they had gift cards. People had donated gift cards, so we didn't have to buy lunch.
Oh, the plate of cookies in the kitchenette. Oh my God, I love those.
Did you got cookies?
Oh God,
How'd you
there
get
was
cookies?
always cookies on the kitchenette. I loved that little kitchen table. Of course, everything in Iowa revolves around the kitchen and food. You know, with families, all holidays, get-togethers, picnics, whatever.
Cookies.
Yeah.
Oh, I guess you're not as cool as we were.
Well, that's odd, because those cookies, I feel like they were just always a staple. Like they were always here. Same lady made them all the time.
Yeah.
So.
Yep. And that is like one of the most iconic, vivid memories of being at hospice house with her was
the cookies.
Yeah. And in fact, I mean, I'd taken many patients in there when I worked on the ambulance, and I could always smell them when I went in there.
But it was home.
Yeah,
it was
a
meant
home.
to mimic home.
Yes, and it was a beautiful place, and I'm so thankful that it was still open when we were there.
Yep.
Yeah.
It would have not been the same experience in the hospital.
I'm never going to forget looking out those windows in that February morning, when the sun is coming up, because it was the eastern side, and the sun is coming up. Things are gray because it's February.
Sure.
But I remember seeing birds. It just was this, and it ended up being a very sunny day, a very pleasant February day. But just those are those things you take away. The smell of cookies would be one of those things.
Oh yeah. Absolutely. Conrae, one of the things I wanted to kind of touch on was, what kinds of things should families be looking for in terms of when should they call, or if they should call for hospice services? Because I don't think people really know.
That's a good question. We do get a lot of calls of people, just letting us know, mom, grandma, we're just seeing changes in her. She's not eating, she's losing weight. Um, for sure with somebody with a cancer diagnosis, when they stop treatment or then that's different than, my 84-year-old mom who I'm just seeing slip away, like is falling, losing weight, um, having pain, maybe frequent infections. And so those are all things we look at. We do look for a primary diagnosis, of course, congestive heart failure, COPD, senile degeneration of the brain, which is like dementia,
Mhm.
Alzheimer's, um,
Strokes, I suppose.
strokes. So I just tell people, I think anytime you start to see some changes or you have a question, are we ready? Is it appropriate? Just to give us a call. We can talk through that and, kind of talk about what's going on. But we get a lot of those referrals that way, just that we're seeing that. And they're maybe withdrawing a little bit, like mom doesn't talk as much anymore, um,
Sure.
just declining. And so, yeah, like I said, we do a lot of information only, because a lot of people don't know it. Are we ready? Is mom ready? Are we sure we
Right. Well, I think a lot of people don't even know that the services are
hmm
appropriate for them
Right.
and they can use them.
Right.
So basically, I guess what I'm kind of hearing is even if you don't really know, just call and get an assessment and
Get
see.
a call. We'll have a nurse come out and visit with you, or a social worker. Yeah, we have people go out and just, because sometimes even when we get a referral on paper, people look much different in person than they do on paper. And so we
Oh,
really like
sure.
to go out and see people. And maybe they're not appropriate right now for hospice, but if they are, then we have nurses, we have home health aides. Well, you've experienced
Right.
that, and I mean, my home health aide, for me, I loved when she came, because that was just, even for me as a caregiver, it kind of gave me an hour of,
Right.
that part of my day to be doing maybe something else. And so,
Or
um,
not do something else.
Like,
yeah,
like we've talked about, maybe just sit and take care of me
Yeah.
because I
yeah.
need that too.
Yes, and isn't it, as a caregiver, just like you just you don't feel like you should take that time for yourself?
No.
And that's why, yeah, I love what, Chris and I were talking about, that what he's doing, and for the caregivers, because that is such an incredibly hard job. I don't know if job isn't the right word, but it's just hard. It is
I mean,
hard.
it is a job. You almost have to make it a job to stay emotionally in it, to not just
Yeah.
break down. Um, but yeah, no, I know when Janice first called hospice for to get services. I mean, I knew she was right because she was a researcher and she was smart. But it still wasn't until the nurse came and did the first assessment with us when I finally went, okay, yep, this is what we need,
Hmm.
and started it. And it was so wonderful. I would have never gotten through those last few months if it hadn't been for hospice. So, for everyone listening, even if you're not sure, give a call. Just find your closest hospice or get a referral from somebody and just call and talk to them. And like we've said before on the show, calling for help is a sign of strength, not weakness. Not looking
That's
for
so
help
true.
is weakness.
Right.
So
Yep.
true.
That's been a big conversation that we've had.
Yeah.
It's not okay. It's okay to not be okay.
Yes.
Yeah, and it's okay to ask for help.
Right. That's
Yeah.
how you become okay again.
Yes.
So
Yeah.
we are about out of time here, Conrae. It's went really fast.
Okay.
So this has been amazing. Thank you for coming on. But we're gonna throw it right back to you for a second. And what is a last thought, a last word you would like to have everyone know or understand?
Oh gosh, it's kind of hard. Um, I think just to know that there's help there. There's people to help at the end of the life journey, and that I don't know how I want to say it, but just that there is support, and death doesn't always have to be a negative thing. Um, if that
Mm.
makes sense.
Yeah,
Yes.
it does. It's just part of the life process.
It is part of the life process, and we as hospice can help you through that. And I just think I don't want anybody to be scared at the end of their life. I don't want anybody to feel alone at the end of their life. Um, and that's where we can come in and help
Right.
with that. And I just
Sure.
think that's important. Yeah.
Sure. We have so many resources for the beginning and middle of life,
Hmm.
and hospice is the one for the end of life. So
Yeah.
perfect. Well, Conrae, thank you very much.
Yes,
I really
thank you so
appreciate
much.
being here and talking about this. I think it's a really important topic for people to listen to. And hopefully maybe somebody will take our advice and give a call and make things easy for themselves.
Exactly. Let's hope.
Yeah. Well, thanks for having me on. It was a good conversation, and
Yeah.
yeah, thank you.
Thank
You're
you.
very welcome. Thanks. Well, Rod,
Well,
I'm going to say it like I do every time. What a
Right.
great episode.
It was
Conrae was really interesting to listen to.
Ton
and
of
talk to.
information, yes.
Yeah. She's been doing it forever and doing a really hard job. you know?
Right.
But I like the fact how she talked about it was like, I guess she didn't use the word honor, but when she was talking, it made me think of Pastor Willie and Friar Josh, who did funerals for loved ones,
Yep.
and it was an honor for them to do that.
Yes.
And I think that's how you keep getting up and going to work in the morning. You know you're making a difference. You're
Right.
helping people with the worst day of their life.
You're affecting you're affecting people's lives, absolutely.
Yep, absolutely. And I think also it's, again, I'm just going to keep repeating it. Call them, get the free estimate. It's like the hail damage on your car.
Right.
Do I need to get it fixed or don't I need to get it fixed? Or I think I have hail damage on my roof from the storm 2 weeks ago, so I got to get somebody up there and find out.
Oh,
But you know what? I just got to call them and have them go look. It's
Right,
either
right.
I either need to use the service or I don't need to use the service.
it doesn't hurt to ask.
No, because if you need it, you're going to be so much better off.
Right.
And if you
right.
don't need it, you just had a nice little conversation with some really nice people.
Well, we had a nice
Calling
lead in.
hospice, that is.
We had a really nice lead in because of the palliative care.
Yes.
I mean, we were in the hospital setting, and that was our lead into it. So we knew we were going in that direction. But it really was like, when do we know we're supposed to do it?
Right.
And that came naturally. That transition came. They said now.
Right.
Basically.
Right. And we knew it just because it was cancer and the
Right.
treatment was stopping. So that's what's going to happen. She's going to
Right.
die after that.
Well, it was interesting
So-
too, because in the nursing home, the doctor came in, Jeff's primary, and he took Jeff off. I think he was on like 13 different kinds of things, and he took him off a lot of things. He said, "Well, you don't really need this anymore. You don't need this because
Right.
hospice can be anywhere between how many like 3 months, a year, or whatever. I mean, there's kind of this broad range of how long."
Right. Right. And that doesn't necessarily mean it's a year inpatient. It could be a year in home.
Right. Exactly.
Where you're happy
exactly.
and comfortable.
Because
you know?
nobody knows. The doctors, when they predict it, that's always
Yeah.
bothers me. It's
They're
like,
just guessing.
don't be telling me, or because then people, and then well he lived 3 months beyond what they told.
No, he didn't.
They
He lived as far along as he was supposed to live.
Exactly. So that's always a misnomer, but that's what we got from everybody. Like, do we know? They go, we don't know, which was
Right.
the most honest thing. I'm glad they did. A lot of them stepped up, and they're human beings and helped us through this journey with Jeff, which was
Sure.
really important. One of the things that I my takeaway too is the volunteers. Because we
We didn't really get to talk about them.
we didn't, and how important. What'd she say? They have like 50 volunteers, and these are people that will go and sit with people who don't have anyone.
Right.
They have no family, or maybe their family's far away, but they will sit with someone while they die.
Right.
I think that's just an amazing thing.
Yeah.
You know,
yeah. No, and I saw that when I was on Mason City Fire, a year to the day that Janice passed away. I had to take a cancer patient
Right.
from ICU in the hospital to hospice house, put him in the same bed that she died in. And then later I realized it was somebody that I knew, wasn't real close or anything, obviously, but it makes you waited away till I didn't really recognize him.
Right.
But he had no one. And so at least he had a volunteer to be there with him.
Someone was with them. Yes.
Yep, someone was with him the
Yes.
whole time. So, I mean, the services and the things that Hospice House does is absolutely amazing. They, like I said, they can even have somebody come in, the health aides come in and sit with the patient so
Yes.
that you can go, if you're a caregiver, you can go and walk around the block or, get away from it for a minute or go take care of something that you've not been able to take care of
Right.
because you're always there,
Not only taking care of other things, but taking care of yourself.
which is so
That
important.
hour or two or whatever it is, So important.
Yep. So very important, which is why I'm starting, the forward wellness coaching for caregivers to help them,
Right.
helping them deal with the grief, not only the grief, but the guilt of leaving their patient and taking care of themselves.
Sure. That makes sense.
Because if you don't take care of yourself, you can't take as good a care of them. And
Right.
I found that out the hard way.
You can't pour from an empty cup.
No, you cannot.
Yeah. Well, the other thing that kind of fascinated me was when we got done, the cemetery plots have been donated in cemeteries. And it's for people who didn't have anybody. And
that is so amazing.
That's
a huge deal.
Yeah.
That's a huge
deal.
deal.
I thought that's something we don't think about.
No, we don't. And I mean, the things that they are doing to support people at end of life are incredible. And I just wish they were still doing them at Hospice House. Whatever corporation now owns Mercy One, shut it down. And now all of the hospice services are the inpatient service is at the hospital with all the hospital goings on.
We were so lucky with Jeff. They closed it right about 2 weeks after Jeff died.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
It's I'm just going to say it. It's the fucking saddest thing that healthcare has done is to close that down.
Yeah.
That is,
because people are not dying in a home-like setting. They're dying in a hospital setting.
Well, and there's no way for patient or the family to get the services they need at the worst time in their life, because a hospital room isn't big enough. The hallway is not a great place to stand and wait when you can't fit everybody in the room, and the little lounge where everybody's waiting for surgeries or to find out if their loved one died in that car crash or whatever.
And does it smell like cookies baking?
No, it does not. It smells like sterile hospital.
Right.
And
you get hospital sounds. It could be ambulances. It could be helicopters.
It's so sad, and I feel like it was profit over people. I guess I don't know. I'm just gonna, but I'm gonna stop my rant now because I'm probably gonna get in trouble for it. I just believe so passionately about their services, and they are still providing all of the services.
Yes.
But I also feel passionately about the location where they used to be able to give that.
The setting,
is also just as much a part of the treatment and the service as the medication and the IV pump and the bed.
Yes.
So
absolutely.
So anyway, on that happy fun note, keep sending us your messages and contacting us and let us know how you're doing. I actually ran into somebody Saturday night, a good friend of mine who listened to Christine Malsby's episode and really connected because his sister went through almost exactly the same thing. Well, the shaken baby part, not all of
the other stuff. Right. But the shaken baby, he could relate to that.
He could because it was almost exactly the same. So anyway, I'm glad we're reaching people and people are listening. And please keep doing that and send us your messages to Chris at forwardwellness4caregivers.com. See you next week.
Hey, Chris, I think we had another good show tonight. I think we nailed it. I think we got knocked it right out of the park.
Yeah, Rod, this is our circus and we are our monkeys.
This is so true. I'm really looking forward to the next show. I don't know what we're going to talk about.
I am too, and I thought you were figuring that out, so I guess maybe I'll help you with that.
Let's talk about that. Absolutely. But I'm really looking forward to whatever we talk about. It will be hopefully it'll be helpful. And
it'll be fun.
It will be fun. So yes,
as
fun as grief can be.
Exactly. So do not miss next week.
No.